Go. Ding, ding.
Here's the ding.
Was
Guess
that the
what?
ding?
Oh, that's
What?
the ding.
That's the ding.
We have somebody great.
Oh, like Fred Flintstone.
We have Grant Botma's purpose-driven culture, killing it with kindness. The secret to retaining staff. This is going to be good.
I bet it is, because I know it is, because I was there.
Let's do this. Purpose.
Okay, Sparky, let's do this purpose.
Buckle up. It's the Insurance Dudes Podcast.
Hey, Grant.
What's up, Grant?
Hey guys,
Hey.
I have a cold, so if you're fine with my voice sounding like this for the podcast, then I'm fine with it too.
Wow,
We
it
are-
sounds very Hollywood.
Yeah.
It sounds like I smoked a bunch of cigars last night.
Yeah. Perhaps you did.
So, Grant, thank you so much for coming on here. The
Yeah.
first thing we have been asking all of our guests to break the ice and to have fun is what is the first concert that you ever went to?
First concert, oh man, I think it was a Christian band called Third Day. And
Really?
I went with my youth group as a kid, and it was like a combination of like a skateboard event and like a Third Day concert.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I've really only been to like 3 concerts in my life. I've been to that one, I've been to Coldplay, and I've been to, I don't even know, probably like maybe 1 or 2 handfuls of like small shows, but not a huge concert guy.
Well, that's cool, man. Third Day. I used to play in some tooth and nail bands back in the day. So I like the Christian music scene's fun, and they did a
Yeah.
lot of those skate music events that were super fun.
Yeah, I was there. I think I probably only went because there was a girl in the youth group that I liked, and she was there, so I went too. But
That's awesome.
as it typically goes with those events.
Well, Grant, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad that you've been able to do it even with the cold. So hope you feel better
Yes.
soon.
Yeah, I think it's like obligatory whenever you join something like this and you're feeling sick, you have to mention Jordan flu game, right? So
Yes.
kind of what I'm doing.
Exactly. You're doing a fadeaway right now. So for any of the people who live under a rock and haven't heard of you or read your book, why don't you just tell a little bit about yourself and go back. Let's hear what you've done.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So my name is Grant Botma. I live in Gilbert, Arizona. I grew up on a farm, and have like no real business savvy or super intelligent. There's nothing special about me. I'm just a regular dude who kicked cow patties as a kid for fun. So I'm not really super smart. But I'm very passionate about the purpose that I have in my life, and that is I want to do my best to love people well, and that's the purpose in my family, but the purpose in my business is to love people through finances, and through that purpose, me and my team have done some awesome things that we're excited about. We recently won an Inc. 5000 Fastest Growing Company in America award,
Wow.
and we won that because of how awesome they are and how they genuinely look for needs in our community and fill them with everything they've got. So Stewardship is a mortgage brokerage, an insurance agency, an investment management firm, and a financial planning firm. So we basically help people with every area of their finances, except we can't get them a raise. So that's what we do. Our kind of mantra and what we tell people is that we help people with home loans, insurance, and investments with wisdom and love. And that's kind of what we do. So yeah, you mentioned the book. I recently published the book that launched last month. Got a really cool response, super humbled by what happened through that. Was an Amazon #1 bestseller in 6 different categories. Did not expect that at all. So it's been fun. And so, yeah, typically Stewardship, we help people with money, but kind of what I do in other industries or other professions is I help other people with their company culture. And so those are kind of, that's me, I guess.
That is awesome. So talk about how, so you started with one industry and it seems like you've done a lot. So talk about that. Talk about how, like, a lot of times we're being told to do one thing and do it well, and that's it.
Yeah.
Where you've been able to do a lot of things well and kind of go beyond.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, me as a whole, I'm a little more contrarian. If like people say you should do a thing, I try to do it the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So people always say, find a niche and do it, or just, stick to one thing and be a master at the one thing. And I guess I do have a one thing and I have found a niche. And again, that's just really loving people well, where I just do everything I can to put other people's needs ahead of my own. And something that I kind of found when I was going through college is how important finances are to people and how it impacts people's lives. It's the number one cause of divorce. It's one of the biggest causes why parents have terrible relationships with their kids and they become disconnected and kids kind of get into trouble. So I didn't want money to be a problem for families anymore. And I wanted to try and find a way to fix it. And the problem was that most people in the financial sector were creating or giving products and services to consumers thinking about their commission first. And although stewardship isn't a not-for-profit, we definitely do profit. We genuinely put the customer's needs ahead of our own and only give them the products and services that are genuinely best for them. And what that means is sometimes we have to say no to extra commission. We might not be able to get as good of a bonus with a carrier that we might, because we're putting all of our business with one carrier. We might not qualify for that trip to Puerto Rico by selling a particular investment vehicle. We might not get $100 or $1,000 extra in commission by giving them a different mortgage product. We're genuinely going to listen well, understand what their needs are, and serve them, put their needs ahead of our own. And that's kind of what I got passionate about. And I figured, man, I'm not going to just do that in one area. I was working as a mortgage loan originator while I was in college. I was 19 years old. Ooh, maybe I can find it. Let me see. Yep. Here's a picture of my old business card. This is what I looked like. So I looked like I was about 12 years old. Yeah, that's what I looked like when I first started. I would show up to people's homes to help them sign their application, and they look behind me like, "Where's your dad?" So I had to get good at speaking with wisdom and with empathy right away, so that people would learn to take what I had to say seriously, because I had this baby face. But while I was in college, I was also working as a mortgage guy. I was just seeing how like really poor salespeople were, for lack of better words, screwing families over by putting them in bad financial spots. And I just didn't want anything to do with that. And not to say that like I'm a knight in shining armor, coming in on a white horse. I'm not like the only company that does good things. Right. But I wanted to be another company that could do great things and that would set people's finances up in the best possible way, whether they knew it or not. So I didn't want to limit that to mortgage. And when I was in college, I started the business plan to do mortgages, insurance, financial planning, the whole thing. And coming soon are additional financial services and products. We're looking at real estate. We're looking at tax filing. We want to help in every area of finances. Again, our unified purpose is to love people through finances, not just love them in their mortgage or in their insurance.
When did this start?
So I was in college when I had the idea for it and put together a business plan. I had an entrepreneurship class where we were required to write and put together a business plan. And so that's kind of like when I did it. But basically a year after I graduated college, I got my license to start my own mortgage brokerage. And then a few years after that is when I pursued starting the PNC insurance agency. And then after that, I added the life and health and planning side of what I do. And then from there, we did the investment advisory. So it's kind of been a process.
Was it before or after the bad year?
Funny enough, the writing was on the wall when I was starting the mortgage company. So it started in 2007, and my uncle, who's a mentor of mine, who's just an amazing man. My parents, I love my parents. They're great. They're amazing people. But you know, life isn't easy, and life hasn't always been easy to them. And there was a time when my father was in prison, and my parents ended up getting divorced as a result of some things. And I really relied on my uncle and my uncles to mentor me. And one of them cared a lot about me, and he knew I was going to be starting a mortgage company. And typically I pursued him for mentorship, but he came to me this time and kind of grabbed me by the collar and said, Grant, don't do this. Don't start a mortgage company. The mortgage industry's going down. Don't do it. And I went against his advice and still started the mortgage company anyways. I felt very strongly about this. And I didn't feel strongly about it because I thought I'd be able to make a lot of money. Just felt strongly about it because I knew it'd be a great way to impact people's lives. And so as soon as I started the company, a couple months later, I mean, it hit the fan. The mortgage industry really turned on its head. But the crazy thing is, since I started the company, every year we've had the opportunity to help more families. So we've grown every single year, despite the ups and downs with the economy, despite the Obama administration and the changes they made to the mortgage industry impacting us in a negative way. We've actually still been able to rise above it and help even more people. So, yeah.
Well, you do things the right way, the right things happen. And you know, a lot of the ones who were who were part of bringing down the economy, basically, you know, they're not likely around, right?
No, they weren't, and they went away. And it's kind of weird. Like, it was like a double-edged sword that I kind of had to say under my breath when people asked what I did for a living. Like, I work with mortgages, right. You know, because they got such a bad name, right? But at the same time, getting all those really, really selfishly minded people out of the industry helped. So yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. And what would you, you know, with those going through those hard times and going into an industry that's not very easy to go into out of college, like usually the financial industry, you have mentors and you do have you know, you start under people. So you kind of just went for it at a bad time. What are some of the pitfalls and struggles that you had through that journey?
No, I'm a different dude, man. When I drive downtown and I see like these big buildings, I don't look at them and be like, wow, they really got it together. This bank or this financial institution, they have more than me. All I see is like a really big overhead payment. I don't believe the individuals who started that entity or are running that entity are any better off than me or you or anybody listening to this show. They're just people. And like Lou Holt says, you know, they put their pants on the same way we do, you know, and really the only thing that separates me is their why. And I believe so strongly in my why and my purpose that gave me the confidence to take action. I wasn't worried about figuring out how to do it because somebody somewhere, no different than me, figured out how to do it too. And when I was starting, that's when Google really got popular, right? So I had the Google and the World Wide Web at my fingertips. So if I had a question and needed to know how to do it, I would just search it and figure it out. And if I didn't know how to do a thing, I would figure out how to do the thing or find somebody that did. And the pitfalls that came really had anything to do with my confidence for taking action. And anytime my confidence wavered, I just really leaned into my purpose. And I believe strongly that I could, this was a great way to make an impact on people's lives. And I wanted to do it. So really the pitfalls that I came into had to do more with my own personal internal stuff. So beyond having confidence to take the action, but it's as you grow and as you're going, figuring out to learn how to trust a staff, figuring out how to hire people, put systems and processes in place so they can do things well. Because most business owners, they get to a place of success because they do have the confidence, they do take action, they have the ability to grab the bull by the horns and just go. But the downside to that is you hit a ceiling in your business if all you're doing is being the only person that goes. If you don't trust a team of people to do it for you. It's almost like you're training somebody, right? And they're sitting at the computer and they're clicking around, and because it's their first time doing it, they're kind of wondering what's going on. You're just like, give me the mouse, you know, and you grab it and you click around and you want to do things, right? Because you just want to go. And learning to trust people and learning to create a culture, to create an environment where people can end up being better at stuff than I ever was one of the bigger pitfalls and struggles.
So I want to talk a little bit about purpose. How did you, not a lot of people focus on this. They go. It might be money driven, it might be whatever driven, but you keep mentioning that you have a strong purpose. How did you get that strong purpose?
For me, it came from the Bible. So I am a Christian and do my best to follow Jesus. I'm a sinner and need Jesus like the rest of us. So I'm not perfect by any stretch, but in there, it was outlined that my purpose in life is to love people. And I said, well, if I've received this love of Christ, there's no other way for me to respond than in love. So that's where my purpose came from. But most people, again, who've started the business, if you're starting a business just for money motivation, it's just not going to be sustainable. You'll burn out. And you'll get to a place where you don't necessarily want to do it anymore. And whether your purpose comes from Scripture like it did for me, or if it comes from something else, the purpose has to be selfless and has to genuinely make a difference in the world. All of us are wired to want to make the world a better place. And most of us, when we're healthy, find a maximum amount of joy and happiness, the maximum amount of sustainability by pursuing this purpose. So yeah, if you're not a Christian, or you're not necessarily a religious individual, I recommend that you dive into understanding and answering that question. Where can I give selflessly to make an impact on other people? Because if I'm not doing that, then what the heck am I here for? Really? So you might pursue a money motivation to start the business, but really you're pursuing that money for a couple of different things. And this is kind of what I talked about in the book, but you'd be pursuing that money motivation for 3 other motivators that are more important. One would be freedom. If you have money, you have more flexibility and freedom to do other things, to do more of the things that you want to do. Or you're pursuing that money and that monetary value for affirmation. You want people to see you as successful. You want to drive a nice car, have a bigger home. That's actually the underlying motivator there. Or you want that money to make an impact on other people, to give to a philanthropic endeavor, to provide for your family. Those are purpose-driven motivations that are the underlying factor behind the money. So if you're listening to this podcast and you think, no, Grant, I really am motivated by money, really think through what's the underlying factor. What are you going to do with that money? Because our brains statistically are proven, not me, again, I kick cow patties, right? I'm not super smart. This was other people who are a lot more intelligent than me who've figured this out and done study after study after study, hundreds of years, that prove it's money, it's affirmation or mastery of a craft, and freedom or autonomy that's more important than money.
Love it.
Awesome.
And where did that faith come from? I don't know if I'm digging too deep here, but like what gave you that? Like usually we hit some sort of, I'm a believer myself, and I went through some hard times and it really kind of kicked me in the butt. I ended up quitting drinking and all kinds of stuff just because I knew my purpose and I knew that I needed to change what I was doing. I was in a bad place for a while in my 20s, but what brought you to that point? Because it's a strong drive.
Yeah, I think it's primarily enlightenment is what brought me there. So meaning I grew up in the church and went to church Sundays and Wednesdays like a good pew sitting church boy would. And I went to a Christian grade school, kindergarten through 8th grade. But faith was never my own. I never really read the Bible other than to memorize the Bible verses that I had to check the box in school. And then, like you, I came across some hard times. I thought my life was going to be headed in this direction. and some stuff happened that completely demolished that. And I was like, what now? And I felt hopeless and helpless, and for the first time really out of control in my own life. So I didn't really know what else to do, and so I just opened up the Bible and really read it for the first time. And I was like, what? The Bible says this? No way. And I almost didn't believe it. So I started testing it out. I'm like, okay, if it really says that, let's test it. And I kept testing it and became enlightened to the fact, like, holy crap, this is true? Whoa. And I didn't have really any other response to it, but to continue to dive in and learn more about, and became enlightened to that truth. And as I became enlightened to it, it required a response from me. So that's kind of the journey that I went on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Love it.
And then what you were reading and the passages you found then contributed to supporting this purpose that you realized.
Yeah. So like, there's this weird, well, not weird, but there's this very famous verse in the Bible. It's known as the Great Commission. It's you basically go out into the world and baptize people and make disciples. And when I looked at that scripture, I was trying to think, okay, well, what if the Bible's really true and is really important? What's the most important piece of scripture? Well, then I looked, okay, well, who's the most important person? And well, it's Jesus. Well, Jesus died, rose again, and then before he was going to ascend into heaven, so before he's going to leave the earth, he said that statement, the Great Commission. So to me, if like one of you guys are going to die right now, and you know you're not going to be the last thing you're ever going to say, you're probably going to say something really profound, right? So to me, I'm like, okay, this is really hopefully, right? Right. So to me, this was really, really profound what he said. So I just started diving into it, and as I looked at this one particular verse, I'm like, well, what's the most important thing here? What's the most important word? And some people would say it's go, some people would say it's baptize, some people say it's make disciples, but really the most important word there is them. If you break down the word in grammatical format, like if you dissect the sentences, this gets really nerdy, but it's not even a complete thought or subject without the word them. And then I look back to what Jesus made his life about, and all he did was make his life about them. And what was he doing to them? He was loving them. That was it. So that's where I became enlightened to, well, I better make my life about that too. And the cool thing is, it's not like I just read it and believed it. I tested it and I tried it. And I found no greater joy and purpose in my life than when I'm doing that well. When life sucks for me, it's because I'm not doing that well.
Right.
Yep.
You're focusing on your own selfish interests instead of helping others. And anybody that's in business or out publicly talking to people knows that the more you spend focusing on everybody else, the more it comes back to you.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about it is like business fundamentally does not exist without genuinely putting somebody else's need ahead of your own.
Right.
A business exists because there's a need, and then you have to fill it.
Yep.
You know.
Nope. Yep. Nobody wants to be sold, right?
No. Well, and even if they are being sold, you're selling them on something that they need, and you're selling them with selflessness. Right. I think sometimes the word sold and manipulate get used negatively, but I'm a salesman and I'm a manipulator, and I do them well, and I try to do them for people's own good. I genuinely do it for their needs. And you know, if you're not running a business and genuinely putting somebody else's needs ahead of your own, it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to work, and it won't grow as fast or as high as it could.
You shift your focus to their need, and once you have an understanding, then you can help them. People are inherently afraid to make a decision, right? And that's ultimately at the end of every sales call. At the end, it's all of the reasons, all of the objections, all come down to not ready to make the decision, right? Or I'm afraid to. I have analysis paralysis or whatever it is. And if we've properly helped them and identified those needs, we're going to be able to flip it. And I don't know, manipulate's a strong word, and it can get a bad rap, but if you understand what is best for them and you truly want to serve them, sometimes you have to convince them. It takes a little convincing.
Yeah, you can manipulate for good. You can sell for good. And I think one of the best exercises any business owner or any salesperson could ever do is to genuinely put themselves in the shoes of the consumer and figure out what is their customer journey. What does this map look like? What are the big macro experiences? What are the micro experiences? And then ask this hard question. What's genuinely best for them, even if it sucks for me as the salesman?
Yeah.
And how can I change those experiences to make things as awesome as possible for them as they're going through this journey? And that helps them and enlightens them to making some of those decisions and getting past some of those things that you had mentioned.
Sure.
So that for some reason I was able to do that early on in my career, and it dramatically impacted how our business grew and changed.
That's awesome. How about mentors, Grant? Has there been anybody that, obviously Jesus and the Bible, but here that you've looked up to, that you've been able to follow and have really made an impact?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that I see as different with me versus other people that have grown up. I mean, a lot of people, they'll like hear little things about my story. They're like, what? Your dad was in jail? What? Your parents were alcoholics? You're divorced? Like, you grew up in redneck country? Like, how did you turn out the way you did, right? And really, it's just because of other people, you know.
Sure.
I'm only as good as the people that have helped me
Yeah.
and been the wind in my sails. And my grandfather once told me, like, Grant, all you got to do is find people with wrinkly skin and gray hair and ask them lots of questions. And I took that advice to heart. And I never really had like formal mentorships. I mean, I there was a few, especially in college.
Yeah.
But what I did with my grandfather's advice was I always had a handful of questions that I memorized. And these questions that I memorized were really tough questions. Things like, what was the biggest mistake you ever made as a husband? What was the biggest mistake you ever made as a parent? You know, why did you start your business? Why do you go to work every day? You know,
Wow.
things like that. And if I ever found myself one-on-one in a room or in a car, or even just standing in a conversation with somebody that had wrinkly skin and gray hair, I asked the question. And
Like me.
Yeah, I got it coming in, but
I got a lot.
I took my advice from my grandfather and took action on it that way.
Sure.
And it was unbelievable what the information and advice that I got. And the cool thing was, when I did that, these other people that had a lot more wisdom than me appreciated the question and then wanted to share more wisdom with me. It was a beautiful thing. So again, I had a whole lot less informal mentorships with intentional questions and timing, more than I had like, hey, I'm going to show up at your house on Tuesdays at 3 every day, and we're going to go through this workbook together. Like, that's not really what it was.
Yeah.
So do I have mentors? Man, Craig, I've had more mentors in my life than I could ever count.
Yeah, when I was at Merrill Lynch, which was a long time ago, and it was before 2008, I remember walking in. I said, well, how am I going to get clients? And one of the older guys said, what do you like to do? And at that point, I loved to golf. And they're like, well, go golf. I'm like, what do you mean go golf? I have to work. It's like, no, go golf and talk to old people. Ask them those intentional questions. They're going to like you. They're going to want to eventually invest their money. And I'd go out and I acquired clientele by golfing. Right. And so I think there's a real important thing with doing the things you love and connecting it with also the work that you love.
Oh, heck yeah.
Making it all part of, all of your part of your purpose. Not a big fan of golf anymore. I've changed from that.
It's because you don't drink anymore.
It's true. It's true.
That's my big theory on golf.
Yeah.
Take that out and
take out the alcohol in this day.
So talk about culture. Like
it's one of those buzzwords.
Yes, yes, for sure.
And it's being used a lot. I would say though, and I genuinely mean this. Well, as I mentioned before, if you're just trying to do everything on your own, you will hit a ceiling. And I am grateful and fortunate enough to have a team of just hired employee number 24 a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Of self-directed people that are on a mission together. And they're not just on a mission to like, hey, we're going to, love people through finances. But again, it's together. It's a unified purpose. So they come into the office every day, giving of themselves, doing selfless, sacrificial work, putting customers' needs or community's needs ahead of their own. And they get to do it with other people. And it brings them a crazy amount of joy. And I think that's really what culture is. Culture isn't necessarily the fact that I have a couch in every office that you see behind me. It's not because I have nitro cold brew coffee on tap. You know, it's not because we played video games in the break room. You know, it's not because my team was gone the first half of the day going golfing. Culture is about your ethos, really what motivates you and what drives your actions on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I think a purpose, but not just a purpose, but a selfless purpose that unifies people together, a unified purpose, is the most important thing to culture.
Awesome. And talk about Culture Course.
Yeah. So this was kind of like a weird thing. I didn't like mean to create it. I was being asked to speak at different events and whatnot. And then my assistant one day is like, "Hey, Grant, we're having a hard time getting the things done that you want to get done. You're traveling too much. We got to do something about this." And I'm like, "Well, I want to help people. I want to love people and help them in their businesses. So I don't want to stop doing this." And she's like, "Well, why don't you do an online course?" And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" And then, so she enlightened me to this online course, and I created an online course that basically took the stuff I was speaking about on stage, but then took it to another level. So now I have this thing called Culture Course, where it's 12 modules where people can learn not only how I do my culture within my business, but there's copy and paste resources, checklists, guides, and everything that allows them to literally copy the things that I do in my business and apply it to their own business, all the way from hiring, all the way through into firing, goal setting, accountability, the works. And this allows what I wanted to do, which was help people and make a big impact on their businesses. Now you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Many people have told me I should charge a lot more for this than what I'm charging, but it's like not my primary income thing. Like, to be honest, all I'm hoping is to get enough income out of that to pay my tax liability every year. Like that's really all it is. I'm not trying to become rich off of it. So yeah, that's Culture Course. That's how it started. That's what it is, and that's why it exists.
That's great.
How could somebody find that? Just so
you just go to culturecourse.com.
Okay.
There's a free training that I have that's part of it. If you go to culturecourse.com/hiring, I talk about my kind of four-part motivational hierarchy there and how you use it to hire awesome talent. Because it is statistically proven that the top talent out there doesn't want this gigantic comp package. The best talent out there actually wants to work for a company that's on a purpose, that does give them freedom, and that does provide affirmation. And I have this free kind of like webinar training that walks you through that.
Wow.
And then at the end of the webinar, there's an opportunity to buy the course as well. But yeah, so you can go to culturecourse.com to learn more, culturecourse.com/hiring, and then you'll get to go through the webinar.
And can you give us a couple insights of some tips and actionable, maybe tips and tricks that you use to help that might be in the course, but tips and tricks that you use? Yeah,
for sure. I'm like an open book, dude. Like I seriously will give away as much information as I possibly can. So you guys ask whatever questions you want and I'll tell it to you. But one of the things that I talk about a lot when hiring is there's a thing called a job description, which we all know about, but I don't necessarily use that to attract the talent. I have what's called a job announcement, and that's just a one-page website that talks in detail about all the awesome stuff that they're going to get as part of the job, including the purpose that they'll be a part of, the team members that they'll get to be a part of this purpose with, that talks about all the freedom that I do give them and the ways that I'm going to make them a master of their craft and affirm them. So I'm attracting them using the things that's already inherent within their brain to motivate them. So that's how I get a bunch of resumes. So the example, I just hired somebody, right? And it was a very small 30-hour-a-week position. I pay minimum wage salary, and I'm a huge merit-based pay guy with some merit-based pay on top of it. And it honestly doesn't pay a ton, but I got over 80 resumes just by posting the job announcement. Our ethos of who stewardship is known so well in our community because of our purpose of wanting to love people through finances, that like I got people lined out the door to come and work for me. And everybody here could get paid more somewhere else if they did the exact same thing, and they all know it. So it's not about money. It's not about putting a really good comp number on the job description. So that's kind of one thing. Let's see, another thing that I do that's a little bit different is I don't believe in quarterly performance reviews. I think that those are stupid. Most people show up to those with a mask on and they're not themselves. They're typically going to like come in maybe with some defenses up, and we're like trained in business school and through management books, like figure out what someone's capable of and then give them a goal that's higher than that. So they reach for that and then they achieve high, right? Well, what that does is kills confidence and it's not sustainable. So rather than like creating these stupid goals, coming into this performance review, giving them a goal that they know they're not going to meet, I flip the script. I every quarter take my employee one-on-one out to lunch or coffee or smoothie, whatever they want, and I make it an employer review. They review me.
Wow. Awesome.
What am I doing that's right as a manager? What am I doing wrong? What are we doing as a business that's right or wrong? How are you feeling about your job? What tools and resources do you need? Do you need additional education? How's your family feel about your job? Are they supporting your employment, or do you kind of feel like it's a drag? You know, learning these things, having my finger on the pulse of the culture of the people within the business is a big deal. But my best ideas for our growth have come from those meetings because nobody knows the business better than the team. So those are two things.
Well, your team's
That's
your
awesome.
number one customer, right?
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
Your number one
100%.
customer right there.
Dude, one of the favorite things that my team does, like, okay, so I'm fairly mild-mannered, and there isn't a whole lot like that's going to irritate me. But if there's a vendor or even a customer that treats one of my team members inappropriately and damages their respect or mental state, I will be on that person like a bear on honey. I am not messing around. And one of the favorite things in the office, and it doesn't happen very often, but maybe once a year, I think this year what happened one time, there was a vendor who said some inappropriate things to one of my team members. I got on the phone and lit him up, and all our calls are recorded. So one of my favorite things in the office is like, Grant's yelling at somebody, everybody listen, you know, and they all listen to the phone call or whatever. But that's just one example of how you can defend your team. Put their needs first. If I'm going to tell them, hey, look, we're going to love our community through finances, it's like, what does that mean? Well, you put their needs ahead of your own. Well, how do I do that? Do what Grant does to you. I'm genuinely putting their needs as employees ahead of my own as the owner of the company.
Sure. Yeah. And how much like when it's flipped the other way, the typical way that everybody does a review, right? You're bringing them in and you're putting your needs, right?
Exactly. It's so selfish. Like,
fundamentally, it is pretty crazy. And we expect to get results.
Yeah. And you know what? Some of these tools and tactics might provide some immediate results. But again, for sustainability, it's not. Look, if you're starting a business and you want to sell it in a couple of years, fine, do those things. But if you're in it for the long term, you need to take long-term actions.
Sure.
And that includes selflessness in every area of your business, from not just how you serve your customers, how you treat your team, and how you manage them.
Yeah.
And what's your retention? Your retention with your staff?
Oh man, it's crazy good. So I've been doing this for almost 14 years now, and I think I only had 5 people that have left. 2 of them left to become moms. They were both trying to have kids and couldn't, and they adopted, and we actually supported them in that journey to adopt. So now they're stay-at-home moms and have these beautiful adopted babies. One of them actually came in last week, got to snuggle with him for a little bit. But another one moved to a different state. Her husband got a different job, so they moved away. Another one decided that he wanted to start his own business, a design company, and I actually helped him start the business. And then I used him and hired him as a vendor to help design so much of stewardship stuff. And I really only had one employee that didn't really work out that I had to fire. One, yep, yeah, and it was a great experience, not only for me, but for that person. And to this day, that person refers a lot of business to us, even though that I fired him.
So walk us through that. Yeah.
Okay.
Even the one that you fired.
Again, it starts with selflessness.
Still worked out.
Yeah. It starts with selflessness. I'm genuinely putting my needs or their needs rather ahead of my own. And what I did through the firing process, and this is something that I outline in my course as well, but I first point everything that we do to our unified purpose of loving people through finances. So when they're not doing that, I communicate to them, you're not doing it. Here's how you're not doing it. Let's get better at it. Hey, you know what? If you did it wrong, it's probably my fault. What am I missing? What am I not giving you that's making it so you're not doing this well, right? So then we talk about that. I supply all the things they need. Failed at it again. Hey, you're still not loving people through finances. Here's how you're not doing it. I gave you these things. Maybe I didn't implement it correctly. What could I be doing different? I'm obviously not leading you well. What's going on? And look, those first two conversations, you have to swallow the biggest amount of pride possible, because as a manager and an owner, you just want to get in their office and slap across the face and be like, hey, idiot, stop doing that thing, you know?
Right.
You have to really be selfless in that regard, be humble and say, what could I be doing better? What could I do as a leader to help you better love people through finances? So I take them through that. And finally, by the third time, if they're still not doing it, they're the one that recognizes that they need to find a job. It's not me that's doing it. So by the third time, I say, hey, you're still not loving people through finances. By this time, they're almost kind of defeated. And they're just like, man, I think I need to find something else to do. And I'm like, you're right. Let me help you. And I helped them find another job. And that's kind of how it worked.
Oh, that's so cool.
So there's
just
no
like, my mind is just racing right now.
Yeah, there's, and the thing is, it's my fault. Okay, if you have employees that are working for you that aren't performing, that's a you problem. You hired them.
Yes.
And guess what? After you hired them, you're leading them. So it's on you. So if you take that perspective as you're going into it, it helps remove some of the anger and frustration that's there. I'm not saying it was easy to do, but you do have to go into those conversations with humility, and you can still go into those conversations with humility, have the hard conversations, say the things that need to be said. But if you do it with humility, it's going to help a lot.
Sometimes it's a lot harder to, like, if you're blaming other people for things, it's a lot harder to live like that. If you blame if everything is your fault, then you take responsibility. You can change things. So you're not helpless. But, and I've noticed this, I mean, there's two people, the half empty, half full. Everybody always talks about that. And there's people that do take the responsibility for their life, and there are people that like to make excuses for it. And man, gosh, like, it's so liberating to be able to say everything's my fault, and because then I can work on it. So even though it's my fault, which hurts the ego a little bit, right? But it does, you do get to that point that you can actually make a change.
Yeah. And it's more than just like half empty, half full. It's like, let's assume people feel like in relationships, especially employer relationships, there's a give and take, right? You give a little employee and I'll give a little, and we'll meet halfway. No, forget all that. I just go the full 100. I go all the way, and I meet them where they're at. People anticipate or expect you like, hey, you know what? When you come and be a part of my team, you need to behave first. And once you've proven yourself, then I'll let you belong. No, you do it the other way around. Before they're even hired, in the final interview, because through my interview process, the final interview, you know you want to hire them. So I tell them in the interview, the final interview, like, look, this sounds weird, but me and my wife, we've made a choice to love you. You belong. You're a part of this family if you want to be a part of it. And everything that we do as part of the onboarding process is letting them know that they belong. I even have somebody on staff who her job is to make people feel belonged. She is the executive of belonging, and that's all she does. So the first couple of weeks, she just pours into these people to let them know that they belong. And guess what? When they do, then they behave like you never would have expected before. The
That's
behavior
awesome.
and the performance goes to heights that you could never even anticipate. You don't go backwards. Don't say, hey, look, I'm going to expect them to behave, and then they'll be buddy-buddy with, then they'll be on the good list, right? No, love them, care for them, give them everything you've got genuinely, and then watch what happens to performance later on. It's just going to increase like crazy. And I think that's important. And the same goes with trust. Don't say they've got to earn my trust. Trust isn't earned, it's given. Go give it to them. And if you've got somebody that you can't trust, again, it's a you problem. You hired them, and that's important.
Well, Grant, thank you so much, man. You're a great dude. I hope your family and you prosper, and I hope that your word of love gets spread to as many people as possible, because that's a huge thing that our society probably doesn't put enough emphasis on, you know?
Oh, so, man, thank you. You know, you guys didn't ask me to do this, but I'm going to anyways. I because of the book, kind of like virtual tour that the publisher has put me on, I've been on a lot of different podcasts. This was fun. Genuinely. I mean, I really wasn't looking forward to it because my voice was hurting. But I had fun having a conversation with you guys, and it was very, very easy.
Thank you.
I could see why so many people love this podcast. Grateful that you guys had me on. You're doing an awesome job. I mean, not only was it fun to listen to over the past several weeks gearing up for this thing, but it's been fun to be a part of. And I can't say that about every single podcast I've been a guest on. So you guys are awesome. So thank you so much for creating this environment for me and creating this environment for our peers. So yeah. And
wow,
man,
thank you so much.
Yeah,
Jason and Craig, like I genuinely want to be a help to people. One good thing that people could do is they can follow me on Instagram. I am there like daily, showing up with stories and posts talking about a lot of the stuff that we talked about. And if anybody wants to reach out and get some help, I'm happy to help however I can.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
We'll tag you on all our Instagram stuff for when we post your episode, and we'll get that all out there. So
we'll put all your links to in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you,
Grant. So awesome to have you, and very grateful that you could take the time and spend it with us. And I hope you feel that.
Thank
chicken
you.
Noodle
Appreciate
soup.
it. Yeah, chicken noodle soup. Thank you, guys.
All right, Grant. Thank you, my
Grant,
man.
thanks.
Hey, you've got to check out the Insurance Dudes Inner Circle, coming soon, where you get extended interviews as well as live coffee talks in our private Facebook group. Join the mailing list today at theinsurancedudespodcast.com. Hey, thanks for checking out The Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.